Hey everybody, it's Peter, and this is the 2025 Kawasaki Z125. This is Kawasaki's version of the MiniMotos. And of course, we all know that Honda kind of has this segment. They've got a lot of bikes in this segment, but Kawasaki didn't just go in to be a competitor. They actually made their bike better, and depending on what kind of rider you are, you may appreciate what this does well. So I feel like in the past I didn't really review this bike as well as I should have to really point out the differences between this and the competitors and who might want to buy this one over the competitors. So that's what we're going to do in this video. So I'm filming here at Jim Gilbert's Wheels and Deals, Jim Gilbert's Power Sports, the #1 volume Kawasaki dealer in the country, and we're going to take a look at this because I get to take a look at all kinds of bikes here. Everything they sell, they let me have access to show you all kinds of things. So again, this is the end of the year in 2025, and I'm doing this video on purpose right now because one of the benefits to bikes like these is the value equation. This one costs less than the Honda Grom, just as MSRP, but right now it's even more on sale again, and compared to the new model with the sale right now, it's $500 cheaper than the next model year will be, which is an identical bike with a different color scheme. So if you're looking for great value in a brand new motorcycle that does things for you and has some limitations, remember every motorcycle is a compromise, this is definitely something that should be on your radar, especially if you're looking in that kind of MiniMoto category. So we're going to talk about how this is a full-size bike to a point. We're going to talk about why it's built in the way it is and what makes it a little bit better than the Honda Grom as well. So all that coming up right now. So usually at this part of my videos, I like to talk about the class of motorcycle. Now we already kind of covered that, we kind of know what this is, and I think if you're looking at this, you kind of know what you're dealing with in the class. But there is an element of branding here. We know that Honda kind of created the segment, it took off, it did really well, and then Kawasaki wanted to get in. But Kawasaki didn't just want to get in, they wanted to steal sales. So they specifically went after a portion of the market that this goes after. And when you think about Honda, in general, they have a branding image of reliable, practical motorcycles. And that doesn't mean they don't have sporty motorcycles. With Kawasaki, they have an image of sporting motorcycles, and that doesn't mean they don't have reliable and practical motorcycles as well. So this one kind of went after, in the segment of Grom buyers that are going to want something that has a little bit better handling and a couple of little performance tweaks to it just straight out of the gate. So that's kind of where Kawasaki's mindset was when they created this, and you can start to see it when we look at the individual components. So let's start down low, work our way through. So taking a look at the front wheel, no matter which motorcycle I review, I always take a look at this front wheel because it tells you the manufacturer's intent of the bike when you look at a front wheel of any motorcycle. So what you see here is disc brakes, you see small wheels. So let's talk about those small wheels. We know that a sport bike has a 17-inch diameter front wheel. This one's a 12-inch diameter front wheel. We also know that an adventure bike can have up to a 21-inch front wheel. We know that from 17 to 21 on the sport bike to adventure bike, the adventure bike, although will be better off-road because it has that sort of better angle of approach, it is less sporty at the 21-inch wheel compared to the 17-inch wheel. Now the reason sport bikes don't go smaller than 17 is there's a stability thing, there's just a general tire size options and that kind of thing. So all sport bikes will have a 17-inch front wheel. Adventure bikes will have taller, and that will dull the handling. So if a larger tire dulls the handling, a smaller diameter wheel, smaller diameter rim will actually enhance the handling. This thing is going to feel twitchy, and twitchy is good when you have a slow speed motorcycle because too big of a wheel would just kind of make it boring in the speed range you're going to ideally want to take this in, which is around town, country highways at best, but mostly around town. The benefit of a 12-inch wheel is that direct dartiness, that real aggressive. So when I said twitchy, it can feel twitchy on a more powerful bike, but it's going to be real darty on this, and that allows you for a big bike feel at lower speeds. What it means is it's going to handle really well. So if the point of having these small wheels is great handling, Kawasaki went all in on handling. These tires are narrower than the Grom, which is a competitor. Narrower tires also make the bike more darty, more handling, it makes it feel more lively. So instead of going for pure styling, which a lot of people like the styling of wider tires, Kawasaki went all in on the handling, and you'll see that in a few areas on this bike, but the wheels are a big example. So both front and rear tires are narrower than the major competitor, the Grom, but then you still have the upside down forks, the disc brakes, so you have that sort of sport bike type feel. Obviously these brakes aren't like high-end sport bike brakes, but that's because it's not going to be going all that fast, but you still have those disc brakes. Moving back, let's talk about the heart of this bike, and one little tweak in there that is very interesting, helps fuel efficiency and performance. So one of the cool things about the Z125, and again I'm saying Z because I'm filming here in Canada, Z125 in other markets, is this little motor. So this engine is a 125cc air-cooled but fuel-injected engine. So it's a fully modern engine, air-cooled because that's all you really need with something like this. Keeps it simple, keeps it light. And keeping it simple and light is a key piece to the performance of this bike. So as we talk about that, you haven't got a ton of horsepower here. We know that's standard for the class. And there's only so much you can do with a 125cc engine without going absolutely crazy. You want it to be reliable, you want it to be good. So what Kawasaki did here is they made a smart regulator. Essentially what it is the alternator that charges this basically has a microchip inside that decides when to use it. So when you go, for instance, full throttle or something like that, it can dial back that alternator, that charging system, and allow you to have all the efficiency that you need, but also all the power that you need. Because on a small engine, everyone knows this, that when you start powering all your electronics, you're going to take a load off of an engine. When the engine hasn't got a lot of power, if you think about it, it's got all the same lighting and that kind of thing as a bigger bike. When the engine hasn't got a lot of power, that load for the electronics, that alternator type system, can draw a lot of power. So putting a microchip in there, allowing it to sort of think for itself on when it needs to charge and when it needs to give you power and efficiency, that makes a big deal in giving this thing a little bit of an advantage in power. It's just that smart little thing that Kawasaki does. Other types of things, you have a little tiny bit shorter wheelbase. Again, that hint of better handling than the Honda Grom, something for the competitors. And again, the rear wheel is also narrower. The other thing is that shorter wheelbase comes from putting the weight forward and low. You'll notice the Grom has the suspension down sort of here. This is moved up and forward. So when you have the weight of this forward and low, that does a couple things. It gives you that sport bike feel. Every sport bike wants the weight forward and low. And of course, this lay down engine here keeps everything low anyways. And then you have the exhaust down here. Now Kawasaki does this with a lot of their bikes, and other bikes have started copying them. Everything that does stuff down here, if you don't swap out the exhaust, everything is down low. So all the weight at stock form comes down low. There is no exhaust running up the side. When you have it centered and low, that's again going to be a little hint to give you a little bit better handling. So the bike is lightweight, but it also feels lightweight. We should talk about fuel efficiency as well. A little bit larger tank than the competitors, so you're going to make less fuel stops because you've got a little bit more tank capacity as well. All little things to make it a little bit better handling and a little bit better for everyday riding through town. So all of that handling information is great, but how does it actually fit? These look in the showroom like they're kind of kids' bikes, and they actually fit full-size adults pretty good to a point. I'm about 6 feet tall, and if you're taller than me, this may not be the bike for you. But if you are my height, one advantage this has is the seat is a little higher than on the competitor. The Honda Grom would be in the main competitor. So I'm gonna put the kickstand right out of the way. You can see here, if you're my height here, your legs connect perfectly under the sweep of the tank here. And what that means is it really allows you to grip into that tank and feel it. Now it's about 225 pounds. This is a very, very lightweight bike. But again, all that weight being low, this feels much lighter. I've felt e-bikes that feel heavier than this moving across. Even though they're lighter, the weight up top makes it feel heavy. So this feels like a very light motorcycle. As far as my size here, again, if you're much bigger than me, you're gonna run into a spot where your legs maybe don't fit as well as mine do. If you're shorter than me, you're gonna be fine. And even if you're shorter than me, that taller seat height kind of still places you in a position where you feel like it's a full-size bike. Simply riding this bike around just casually, it doesn't feel that small. The handlebars are a little closer to you. That makes sense. You can obviously swing them a little bit. They've got quite a bit of rise here, which we can show you later. You can move them out a little bit. The other cool thing is the mirrors here. They're not round mirrors. They're typical Kawasaki funky shaped mirrors, but they give you a little bit more width out here. So again, if you're driving through town or if you're just driving on like country highways, you're going to want to keep an eye behind you, just generally on traffic, and these give you the good sized mirrors that you're going to need for that. But overall, this thing is going to feel absolutely sport bike-like zipping around town. And what I mean by that is it's going to get into an angle, hold the corner easily. You're going to be able to zip it right off to the other side, hold that corner really nicely. And again, you can do these things around town because this bike is so nimble, it's gonna feel like higher speed corners on a faster bike. So you get all of the feeling of a big bike at higher speeds on this smaller bike at lower speeds. And if you're looking for a motorcycle that gives you just that motorcycle feel, but you want something cheap, small, easy to park, easy to put anywhere, this is going to be a really good option. All right, let's take a look at what you've got out front here as far as controls and features, and then we'll wrap up with talking about who this bike is for and who it's not for. So full disclosure, I usually try to show the entire dash. This bike does not have a battery that is working right now because it was in a display area where that's part of why I still have it late in the model year. It was just harder to access, so they allowed the battery to go dead. That's okay. We're gonna get a new battery when you buy this bike. But what you have here is a tachometer that runs to almost 10,000 RPM, and it's a true tachometer. One of the things is you're learning motorcycles is these round tachometers is what everybody used to do, but sometimes the dash type thing really doesn't give you an even view of where things are. Now this one doesn't either. 0 to 3,000 basically doesn't exist, but from 3,000 to over almost about 9,800 RPM, you've got a steady, straight swath there. So at a glance, you don't have to know what number it's at, but you can tell very easily where you are in the rev range. I like round gauges because at a glance, they make it super simple. Obviously, whatever motorcycle you have, you're gonna learn. But again, a bike that's gonna be in the higher revs, this is really clear and really good. Over here is a digital dash. Obviously, can't show you that right now. Pretty simple stuff in there, just your basic trip odometer, odometer, and then a clear speedometer as well. Let's take a quick look at the controls here now. So the Z125, Z125, depending on where you're from, has good size controls where you use them. There's a lot of people think there's mini controls, and there kind of are mini controls. I'll show you that in just one second. But this is standard stuff for Kawasaki, which means you have a good feeling high beam switch, a good feeling and clear signal switch, and the horn down low. All of these feel like regular Kawasaki stuff. They don't feel like they're cheaped out or different just for this bike. There is a nice feeling clutch lever here. I will say that the clutch is a very light throw, of course, but it's also a very accurate throw. For a bike of this price, sometimes you end up with a real weird feeling clutch. That doesn't happen here with the Kawasaki. As we swipe across, we'll just stay in the same view here. We swipe across here. This is one area where you have sort of non-Kawasaki looking stuff. Basically, this is the only bike I know of with this style kill switch and this style start switch. Not sure why they do it a little bit differently, but they do on this bike. So again, that's the only area where you get something that is specific to this bike. Everything else really feels like sort of the high-end stuff. And it's not that this doesn't feel high-end, it's just obviously specific to this bike. One thing worth pointing out is not every MiniMoto allows you to take a passenger. This, right from the factory, does allow you to take passenger as well. Good sized passenger pegs too, not like little tiny ones. Actually, I feel like they might even be a little bit bigger. The front pegs kind of triangulate. They start wide and they come a little bit narrow as they get closer to you. These ones are more rectangular, so good sized pegs there. Again, you're not taking a passenger much on this, but the point is if you want to take someone around quick, you absolutely can. You've got enough power to take them around town for sure. So let's talk about who should buy this bike and who shouldn't. First of all, if you just want to get into motorcycling and you want something that's inexpensive, maybe you don't have a ton of place to store a bike. This is not that wide, it's very short. It'll generally fit in a single car garage next to your car. If you have a little bit of spot, even a tiny little shed or something like that, even if you just want to put a cover over it, it's very compact, very easy to store. It doesn't take up a lot of space. It's also easy to move. If you want to put it in the back of a pickup truck or something like that, you can get a couple guys lifted in, no problem. So they're very easy to deal with that way. They're known for the reliability, but again, why the Kawasaki? Well, the price matters. I think in this class, to have something that's priced a little bit less appeals, right? You're gonna save on fuel, you're not gonna spend a ton of money on insurance, and you're gonna have something that's inexpensive to buy, but again, you can get it brand new, where you don't have to worry about, did some 16-year-old kid do the oil changes on it enough? Is there a problem I don't know about? Sometimes some of these other ones, especially from the other manufacturers, people kind of soup them up a little bit and then take them down and sell them as is, and you never know what went on with them. So something like this you can buy new from the manufacturer, know that you've got a good manufacturer behind it, and then also you get those little engineering tweaks that are made for handling and performance. Like I said, a little bit narrower tires. We're not going for full out style here. We're going for that big bike feeling. And if you're doing a lot of your driving in town, or almost all of your driving on a bike in town, you can really enjoy and experience what it's like to ride a motorcycle without having to go into a huge expense. A lot of people will buy a bike like this first and then end up keeping it because you can never replicate the feeling of this on a bigger bike. I would absolutely take one of these around town and have one in my garage around town if it made sense for our family, because they're just so much fun to drive in city streets, and they make the regular boring commute into a really fun type of thing. So Who is it for? You want to save some money, but you want to buy something new and reliable and good. That's what this would be. You want something that's engineered for a little extra handling, something like that little, the smaller tires we talked about, but also the extra piece that gives you a little extra horsepower. Instead of having the charging system always draw the same amount, it can vary that charging system based on what you're asking of the bike. That's a nice thing to have as well. And at the end of the day, you want something that's just kind of fun, conversation-like, and compact that you can put anywhere. That's what this bike is for. And it really is something that makes sense for a lot of people. Now, every motorcycle is a compromise. So someone says, oh, this is too small, doesn't make sense, too fast, or too slow, too whatever. Yeah, 100% it is to do certain things, right? You know, a lot of cruisers are gonna be terrible on a racetrack, and a lot of sport bikes are gonna be absolutely terrible to drive long distances on. Every motorcycle is a compromise. If these compromises work for you, then I think you'll really enjoy what you're getting in a bike like this. So let me know below what you think about the MiniMoto type class, and if it's something you'd be interested in as a second bike, as a first bike. And again, we'll come back to them again and again as we need to. And 2026, we'll make sure we cover that one as well. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll talk to you in the next one.